Are you ready for a great adventure? Today on The World is Yours. 3 awesome destinations are waiting for you. Let's start with a tour of Brussels, where we visit the Atomium and the Grand Place and the magical city of Bruges. Then we'll travel to the Atacama Desert in Chile. We'll visit the Valle de la Luna and the Tatio geyser fields, where we'll take a really cool nighttime astronomy tour. And finally, we'll head to Milan, Italy, where we'll see the Piazza del Duomo, the Sforza Castle, and enjoy a stroll along the Barrio Navigli canals. It's time for another unforgettable adventure. The world is waiting, and the world is yours. This is Belgium, one of the 28 countries of the European Union. More than 11 million people live here in 11,787 square miles. Brussels is the capital of Belgium, and it's also the headquarters of the European Union. Brussels is in the very center of the country. More than 1 million people live in Brussels, and a good percentage come from other countries. As a result, Brussels is officially considered a bilingual city, where the majority of people speak French and the rest speak Flemish, which is similar to Dutch. Brussels, which means home in the marsh, is home to many famous monuments and museums. Many people consider Brussels to be one of the most important antique markets in the world. The center of the city is famous for its Flemish architecture. Examples of this are the Palace of Justice, which is the most important court building in Belgium, as well as the townhouses designed by architect Victor Horta, which were built in the late 19th century. Another example of this style is the Stoclet Palace, declared a World Heritage Site by UNESCO, the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, in 2009. Want to see something cool? This is the Atomium, a monument that represents Brussels in much the same way that the Eiffel Tower represents Paris. The Atomium is one of the most famous structures in Belgium. It was built for the 1958 World's Fair. It was going to be knocked down after 6 months. However, it quickly became clear that people wanted it to remain. And over time, it has become one of the biggest tourist attractions in the city. The Atomium has a futuristic look that embodies science. It is 335 feet high, built out of stainless steel. Its 9 spheres represent 9 iron atoms, which are connected to form an iron crystal that is magnified 165 billion times. 3 of the 4 top spheres do not have any vertical support and therefore are not open to the public, while the others have support and tourists can venture inside. The highest sphere has a restaurant where visitors can go to admire the awesome views. But one of the biggest attractions of the Atomium is its location. Laeken Park, a famous park spanning 395 acres in Brussels. King Leopold II created this beautiful park in 1850. From the gate, a street leads to the Forstenhuis Dynasty Square, where a monument to his father, Leopold I, stands proudly at almost 164 feet high. Very close by is the Villa Belvedere, where King Alberto and Queen Paola now live. Along this peaceful walk, we'll also see the St. Anne Chapel and an historic fountain, which was built nearly 400 years ago in 1625. Also in the park is the Stuyvenberg Castle, where illustrious guests stay and important political meetings are held. The royal greenhouses, built between 1875 and 1893, feature a wide variety of beautiful flower and plant species. Perhaps the biggest and most important tourist attraction in Brussels is the Grand Place. The main square of Brussels, it was declared a World Heritage Site by UNESCO in 1988, and it's in the heart of the city. One of the most beautiful squares in Europe, it's surrounded by beautiful homes from the 17th century, which are 300 to 400 years old. The Grand Place is an example of Renaissance architecture with Flemish, Gothic, and Italian elements to the designs. In 1695, a massive French army attacked Brussels and launched a bombardment of the city. The square was left in rubble, with only a few parts of the buildings remaining. Over the next few years, it was rebuilt and became, as it remains today, a signature part of the city. Key buildings in the square include the Brussels Town Hall and the Museum of the City of Brussels, which is also known as Maison du Roi, which means the King's House. Victor Hugo, the famous French poet and novelist, stayed here during his exile in Belgium in 1852. Hugo was the author of numerous influential books, most notably The Hunchback of Notre Dame and Les Miserables, which have been adapted into movies and hit Broadway musicals. Let's continue our Belgium adventure in Bruges, a small, charming city in the northeast region of Belgium, just 56 miles from Brussels, the capital. It has a population of 117,000 people. In Flemish, Brugge means bridge. This beautiful city is named City of Bridges because there are so many bridges. Why so many bridges? Because Bruges is a city of canals. Similar to cities like Amsterdam, Stockholm, Venice, and others, Bruges has a large number of beautiful canals that cross the city. As a result, it's sometimes referred to as the Venice of the North, referring to Venice, Italy. Though, if you ask someone from Bruges about this, they might tell you that Venice is actually the Bruges of the South. Guess it depends on your point of view. You can enjoy these canals from the bridges above or by coasting through them on a relaxing scenic boat trip. In addition to the bridges and canals, Bruges has lots of history to share. In fact, it's one of the best preserved medieval towns in the world. When you arrive at Bijenhof, one of the jewels of Bruges, you might feel like you're in a village that was frozen in time. From the cobblestone streets, to the ancient architecture, to the romantic Swan Lake, there are very few places as magical and spiritual as Bruges. This is the Big Square, also known as Markt. This square is the commercial center of Bruges. Saturday farmers markets bring energy and buzz to the square. Belfort, a medieval bell tower, is one of the most prominent landmarks in the city. From the highest point, 279 feet up, we have the most epic views of this beautiful place. As we keep moving, we arrive to Berg Square, where the town hall is located. Bruges is also home to some very interesting museums, like the Memling, a tiny museum housed in what was an old medieval hospital, where we can admire 6 paintings by artist Hans Memling. And then there's the Gronijn Museum, a more comprehensive collection of Flemish and Belgian paintings. And we can't leave Bruges without trying some of its classic dishes, like mussels cooked with celery, the eel cooked 1,000 ways, and the waterzoi, which is a stew made typically of sea fish, river fish, and vegetables. Delicious! Well, it's time to head out for our next destination. But first, let's test your world knowledge. Where is the driest place on Earth? Is it A, in Africa, B, in the United States, C, in Mexico, D, in Chile? The answer coming up when we return to The World is Yours. We're back. Let's find out the answer to our question. Where is the driest place on Earth? Is it A, in Africa, B, in the United States, C, in Mexico, D, in Chile? If you answered D, in Chile, you're right. Chile is a South American country found in the extreme southwestern part of South America. Its official name is the Republic of Chile, and its capital city is Santiago. The shape of Chile is unique. It's one of the longest countries in the world, 2,672 miles long. But it's also one of the most narrow, with an average width of just 112 miles. It has every kind of climate imaginable on Earth, except for a tropical climate. With 291,930 square miles to explore, it is a must-see destination for those who love adventure. But before we go to this awesome place, let's take a trip to this small oasis, San Pedro de Atacama, a Chilean commune located in the Antofagasta region. This town has become one of the principal tourist spots in the country, being the jumping-off point for diverse tours of the Atacama High Plateau, close to one of the driest places in the world. In the area, we find important attractions like the Tatio geysers, the Valley of the Moon, and the Flamingos National Reserve, beside the archaeological ruins and other historical monuments like the Pucara of Quitor indigenous site. This incredible place is the entrance to one of the biggest deserts in the world, the Atacama Desert. The Atacama Desert is the driest place on Earth. It's the place we were referring to in our question. It covers approximately 40,000 square miles, so it's big. It has become a well-traveled tourist destination, featuring salt beds, hot springs, geysers, and beautiful scenery. It's one of the most striking places in northern Chile. Its soil has actually been compared to the soil on Mars, giving it an otherworldly appearance. NASA is actually using the area to test instruments for future Mars expeditions. How cool is that? The Atacama Desert is also considered the best place on Earth to observe the skies and study astronomy. Its height in relation to sea level, the scarcity of clouds, the almost non-existent humidity, and the lack of city lights and electromagnetic contamination make it much, much easier to see the night sky. About 8 miles west is another cool spot, the Valley of the Moon, or Valle de la Luna. This stunning and barren place was declared a nature sanctuary in 1982 and is part of the Los Flamingos National Reserve. With its very own Valle de la Muerte, which means Death Valley, the Atacama Desert is a unique area that is surrounded by a mountain range. It's a depression of about 170 square miles in the Cordillera de la Sal and the salt flats of Atacama. The tour in the Valle de la Luna goes on until you reach Las Tres Marias, the Three Marys, some interesting rock formations which have eroded with the passing of time. From here you can enjoy the colorful sunset, the dunes, or just marvel at the power of wind, water, and sand in creating these unique shapes. An hour and a half after leaving San Pedro de Atacama towards the high plain, climbing the hills and mountains of the Andes mountain range, we arrived to an altitude of 13,800 feet. Here, we find El Tatio, a natural and unique spectacle with many steaming geysers. El Tatio is one of the highest elevation geyser fields in the world, and the third largest. In addition to the geysers, there are 60 thermal springs and 70 fumaroles, which are openings in the Earth's crust that release steam and gases, all of this in a 1.1 square mile area. Fumaroles are formed by the contact between icy subterranean rivers with hot rocks. The steam columns that rise from the ground reach up to 30 feet in the air and 185 degrees Fahrenheit. So, as you may have guessed, you don't want to touch them. The best time to see the geysers is at sunrise, when the air is cold and the fumaroles are most active. As the day goes on, the air warms up and the steam disappears. The name El Tatio means the old man who cries, and this old man's crying is not to be missed. And if seeing these awesome geysers isn't enough, this amazing place also has natural hot springs where you can soak like a natural hot tub. What a way to relax after the big climb to get all the way up here. Okay, feeling refreshed? It's time to continue our adventure with a nighttime astronomy experience. The Atacama Large Millimeter Array, ALMA, is the largest astronomical project in the world. It's a revolutionary interferometer that is made up of a collection of 66 radio telescopes. An interferometer is an instrument that makes very precise measurements using beams of light. We still have some awesome places to see, but first, let's test your world knowledge. Risotto is a classic dish of which city? A. Turin, B. Milan, C. Venice, D. New York. The answer coming up when we return to The World is Yours. We're back. Let's find out the answer to our question. Risotto is a classic dish of which city? A. Turin, B. Milan, C. Venice, D. New York. If your answer is B. Milan, you're right. The city of Milan is located in Italy. If you want to find the country of Italy on a map, first find Europe. Then look for the shape of a boot. That's it. And it's home to 57 million people. Milan, one of Italy's most important cities, is located in the flatlands of Lombardy province, in the northwestern part of the country. Today, Milan is Italy's main industrial and financial center, and along with Paris, is considered the world's capital of fashion and design. This is the Piazza del Duomo, or Cathedral Square, which, because of its location and its cultural and artistic activities, marks the center of Milan. The Duomo di Milano, or Milan Cathedral, is a very impressive building. The front is made of white marble and gives the impression that it is always lit up. The inside encourages a feeling of reverent respect thanks to a quiet, candlelit atmosphere. Construction of the cathedral began in 1387 and took almost 6 centuries to complete. Almost 6 centuries! All the work paid off because it is the biggest church in all of Italy and the 3rd largest church in the world. From the Piazza del Duomo, you can easily get to the Teatro Alla Scala, better known as La Scala, Milan's famous opera house. The building might not be too impressive on the outside, but inside, its acoustic quality is world famous. Remember we mentioned that Milan was a fashion capital, just like Paris? Twice a year, Milan gets all dressed up to receive the new collections from the most important fashion houses and labels. During the Milan Fashion Week, the world is witness to the new trends to come for fall, winter, and spring, summer. You can also take advantage of your visit and buy some fashionable articles to surprise your friends back home. Ah, Italy. We have more to explore soon, but first, let's test your world knowledge. Why were the canals built in Milan? A. To help build the Duomo. B. For sports competitions. C. To irrigate the town. D. To copy Venice. The answer coming up when we return to The World is Yours. We're back. Let's find out the answer to our question. Why were the canals built in Milan? A. To help build the Duomo. B. For sports competitions. C. To irrigate the town. D. To copy Venice. If you guessed A. To build the Duomo, you're right. This is the famous Barrio Navigli in Milan. We can take this picturesque tour on foot, by boat, or on a bicycle. Although Venice is probably the city most famous for its canals, Milan also has an area with navigable canals called the Navigli. The canals were built in 1179, originally to transport marble to the center of the city to build the Duomo, but it also made the neighborhoods around the canal some of the liveliest in Milan. The two main canals, the Naviglio Grande and the Naviglio Pavese, at one time connected Milan, a rapidly growing city, with the rest of the world. There are three things that we cannot miss at the Naviglio Grande: the restaurants, the Church of St. Christopher sul Naviglio, and the Laundress alleyway. Here, everything is kept in its original state so that you can see another side of Milan's history. Milan is a city for adventurers, for romantics, for all those who enjoy fashion, art, music, and food. Above all, Milan will surprise you at every corner, whether an ancient street or the most modern avenue. It is a city like no other. That's all our time for today. We hope you've enjoyed this trip as much as we have. We visited the beautiful and magical Brussels and took a tour through the city of Bruges in Bruges. Then we went to the Atacama Desert in Chile to explore the Valle de la Luna and the Tatio geyser fields. It felt like we were on another planet. And finally, we enjoyed a visit to the Italian capital of fashion, Milan, and finished off our adventure in amazing Barrio Naviglio. We'll see you soon for another adventure. Until then, the world is waiting, and the world is yours.